Welcome to today's devotional message. You prayed, you fasted, you waited, and still, silence. Maybe this message is the sign you didn't know you needed. If these words meet you right where you are, like, share, and subscribe. It helps us reach more souls who need God's comfort. Comment below with your favorite Bible promise, or the one you're still holding on to in the waiting. Let's begin, and let His Word breathe new life into yours. You sit by the window, tracing the condensation with your finger. The world outside moves on. Cars splash through puddles. A distant siren wails. The leaves on the old oak tree across the street rustle with a life you feel utterly disconnected from. Your own world feels suspended, held captive by the quiet. Days bleed into weeks, weeks into months, sometimes even years. And that fervent, tear-soaked prayer you whispered in the dark, the one that felt like your very soul poured out, it seems to have dissolved into the still, quiet air, hanging unanswered, unheard. This isn't just a pause in the journey. It feels like a void has opened up, a place of emptiness where expectation used to live. You replay conversations in your mind, turning them over and over like smooth stones worn by the river, seeking clues, analyzing past decisions. You wonder where you misstepped, if there was something you did or didn't do that led you to this barren patch of waiting. Or worse, the chilling thought creeps in, insidious and sharp. What if God simply isn't listening anymore? What if your line is dead? What if He's moved on? The weight of the unknown presses down. It's a heavy cloak on your spirit, woven not just with uncertainty, but with the sharp threads of doubt and the cold fear of rejection. Doubt that He cares enough, fear that this silence means your request was denied or that you were found wanting. You scroll through social media, you talk with friends, you see others receiving their breakthroughs, their answered prayers shining like beacons. Their paths are unfolding, clear and certain, while yours remains shrouded in mist. And a silent, agonizing question forms in the deep, quiet corners of your heart, almost too painful to voice aloud. Why not me, Lord? Have you forgotten? Let's name this feeling, this struggle. This isn't necessarily a failure of faith. This is the raw, vulnerable ache of faith itself, tested in the crucible of waiting. It is trusting in the unseen hand of God when the seen offers only stillness, only delay. It is clinging to a promise whispered in your heart when the reality feels like a deafening denial. It's the faith of the woman with the issue of blood, reaching for the hem of a robe she couldn't even see clearly in the pressing crowd. It is the steady resolve of the wise virgins, keeping their oil lamps burning through a night far longer than they had anticipated, trusting the bridegroom would eventually come. Perhaps God's silence isn't an indicator of His absence, but rather a sign of His different kind of presence. A deeper work happening beneath the surface of your understanding, like a hidden river flowing unseen beneath dry ground. Think of the seed buried in the earth. It's in the darkness and silence that the hidden work of germination takes place, preparing it for the eventual light and growth. The wilderness wasn't empty for Jesus. It was a place of intense spiritual battle and preparation, a proving ground before this public ministry began. Maybe your waiting isn't punishment, but preparation. Maybe the silence isn't rejection, but an invitation to trust not just in the what you are waiting for, but in the steadfast, unchanging who you are waiting on. Consider this gentle paradox. Sometimes, the greatest clarity isn't found in the loud, expected answer, but in the quiet stillness where God refines your hearing, teaching you to discern His subtle movements. He isn't asking you to conjure strength you don't possess to break through the silence. He's inviting you to a surrender that paradoxically becomes your greatest strength. He hasn't forgotten you. He is writing a story with your life, and perhaps this chapter of silence, while heavy, is essential to the beauty and depth of the narrative He is crafting. He is closer than you think, perhaps just on the other side of that window. His quiet whisper waiting for your stillness, in the rustling leaves, in the rhythm of your own heart longing for Him, in the quiet certainty that even here, you are held. This waiting place, as uncomfortable and painful as it feels, can become holy ground if you choose to believe He is present in it. It requires a quiet, daily defiance against despair, not a loud declaration of answers received, but a whispered affirmation of trust in the answerer. It's choosing to keep your lamp trimmed even when dawn seems distant. It's choosing to trace the condensation not with a question mark, but with a quiet amen, believing that even in the silence, God is good, God is near, and God is working all things for your good and His glory. Trusting God always isn't about having all the answers in the waiting. It's about knowing the one who holds them all. Imagine a seed planted deep in the earth. On the surface, there is nothing. Silence, stillness, no green shoot, no visible growth. You sit there sometimes, feeling like that surface, empty, untouched by the miracle you prayed for. The silence stretches, heavier than you expected. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, maybe even years, and the ground above you looks exactly the same. Perhaps there's even a sense of decay, old dreams wilting, hopes crumbling back into the soil from which they came. It feels like the end of something, a long, slow fading into the darkness. You question everything, your faith, the promise, whether your prayer was even heard in the vast, silent expanse above. This waiting, this lack of visible movement, can feel like stagnation, a cruel pause in the life you were meant to live. It's easy to believe nothing is happening when nothing looks like it's happening. But beneath that soil, in the darkness you cannot see, something incredible is happening. Life isn't pausing, it's preparing. Roots are reaching, establishing a foundation that will withstand the storms to come. They are drawing strength from hidden nutrients, anchoring the plant that will eventually break through the surface, strong and resilient. This unseen work, this dark season, is essential. It's not decay, it's deep, foundational growth. Your current season of waiting can feel exactly like that deep, dark soil. On the outside, there's no breakthrough, no visible sign of progress, just the heavy, silent earth pressing down. Yet, even now, especially now, God is at work beneath the surface of your life. He is establishing roots of patience you didn't know you had, resilience you didn't think possible, and a deeper, more unwavering trust in Him than any fair-weather season could cultivate. The struggle you feel isn't a sign of His absence. It's the stretching of roots in the dark. The silence you hear isn't emptiness. It's the quiet, powerful work of foundation building. He isn't neglecting you. He is strengthening you in ways only the darkness can allow. Growth often happens not in the light you see, but in the darkness you endure. He isn't demanding visibility. He's cultivating durability. Trust the unseen work. Believe in the process happening beneath the soil of your life. He's building something strong within you. You sit in the silence, the promise feeling impossibly distant, like a star you can only see from miles away. The wind taps the window, like God's whisper waiting for your stillness. But all you hear is the ticking clock, counting the days you've waited. Maybe you've walked through your own desert, called to leave behind the familiar, stepping into a future that feels utterly uncertain. You hold on to a promise whispered by the divine, yet every day seems to contradict it. Think of Abraham. Called by God to leave everything he knew, everything safe and certain, for a land unseen and a promise that defied all logic, descendants as numerous as the stars in the vast desert sky. Abraham and Sarah were old, their bodies long past the season of bearing life. The promise seemed utterly impossible, a beautiful cruelty in its unattainability. Yet he went. He packed his bags, gathered his people, and stepped out in faith. He spent years, decades, walking in the desert, literally and metaphorically. The sand stretched endlessly before him, much like the years stretched without the promised child. He was clinging to a promise that had no tangible evidence, no physical signpost saying, "You're getting closer." Every sunrise was another day without the fulfillment, a stark reminder of their age, of their barrenness. Every sunset painted the sky with beautiful colors, but also served as a silent countdown, time marching on while the promise remained an echo. He wasn't perfect. He stumbled. He doubted. Remember Hagar? He tried to help God out, to force the promise into being through human means, and it brought heartache and complication. He made mistakes along the way, missteps born of fear and impatience in the face of the long wait. But even in those moments, when his faith wavered, when he tried to control the unfolding story, he didn't turn back. He kept walking, imperfectly trusting the God who had spoken. His journey wasn't a sprint to a finish line he could clearly see. It was a lifetime of learning to trust God in the wait, not just for the end result. It was a season of relying on the character of the one who promised, rather than the circumstances around him. His story reminds us that divine timing often unfolds over generations, like the slow, steady bloom of a desert flower, not just in an instant. It shows us that God's work is not derailed by our human frailty, our doubts, or our attempts to rush His plan. You are not alone in your desert walk. Your waiting is not wasted time. It is the very ground where God cultivates a deeper trust in you. He meets your real-world fears, the anxiety of the unknown, the pain of perceived loss, the heavy weight of doubt, the sting of rejection when things don't happen as you hoped, the exhaustion of the long wait, not with immediate answers, but with His enduring presence in the struggle. He is not asking for your perfect composure, only your vulnerable dependence. Can you, like Abraham, choose to keep walking, imperfectly trusting the God who holds the promise? You stand in the quiet place of not yet. The blueprints of your dreams feel crumpled in your hands, perhaps faded by years of waiting. You've prayed for acceleration, for a sudden breakthrough, for visible movement. Instead, you feel the slow, steady grind of time, the unseen work beneath the surface. It feels like nothing is happening, like your life is paused, a project abandoned. Doubt whispers its familiar tune. Is God even paying attention? Is this waiting period just wasted time? You watch others, seemingly build at lightning speed, their structures rising visible and grand, while you remain in the preparation phase, feeling overlooked, maybe even forgotten. The anxiety about the future, the fear that you're somehow missing the season, gnaws at your peace. Consider the carpenter. He doesn't rush into building the moment the timber arrives. He selects the right wood, chosen for its strength and beauty. He lets it cure, perhaps for months, allowing its internal moisture to reach the perfect balance, a hidden process, vital for stability. Then comes the planing, the sanding, the treating, shaping the raw material, refining it, making it resilient to time and weather. Much of this work is invisible in the finished piece, buried within the structure, yet it is absolutely crucial for its strength, durability, and ultimate beauty. A building rushed is a building prone to collapse. God is the ultimate carpenter of your life. The waiting period isn't empty time. It's this crucial preparation phase. He isn't idle. He is meticulously selecting the experiences, the challenges, the lessons, the moments of quiet growth that are the timber of your character. He is letting you cure in the stillness, strengthening your core. He is planing away rough edges, sanding down in patience, treating you with the refining fire of perseverance. This is where your capacity is built, your resilience forged, your faith deepened in the crucible of unseen work. You don't see the divine measurements, the spiritual joinery, the structural supports He is installing within you, but they are essential for the magnificent structure He is preparing you for. Perhaps the hardest part is accepting that the unseen work is often the most important. You long for the finished product, the visible manifestation of your prayers, but God is focused on the foundational integrity, the internal strength that will hold it all together. He knows the stresses and strains the finished structure will face, and He is building you to withstand them. Trust the process of the carpenter. He knows exactly what He's doing, even when the work is hidden from your sight. Sometimes, the greatest building happens in the deepest quiet. You watch them go. One by one, they cross finish lines you haven't even reached the starting block of. Friends announce engagements, climb corporate ladders, celebrate milestones that feel distant, perhaps even impossible for you right now. It feels like standing on a quiet platform while express trains rush past, carrying everyone else to destinations you long for. The world speeds on, vibrant and moving, leaving you in what feels like a static scene, a silent observer of lives accelerating, while yours remains in apparent, frustrating delay. This isn't mere envy. It's the deep, quiet ache of feeling overlooked. It's the sting of wondering if you've been forgotten, perhaps even by the very one whose timing and plan you claim to trust. In these moments of perceived stagnation, when the outward signs of progress are missing, a dangerous whisper begins. It's the familiar, insidious voice of the enemy, capitalizing on your vulnerability. Look, he sneers, they are chosen, they are favored, their prayers are answered. You must not be good enough. Your faith must be lacking. God has a detailed, exciting plan for them, but He seems to have simply passed you by. These lies wrap around your heart like tendrils of doubt, making the stillness feel like rejection, the waiting feel like punishment. You measure your worth not by the unchanging truth of who you are in Christ, but by the fleeting outward metrics of worldly achievement and comparison. You begin to believe the delay is a divine oversight, a sign of your insignificance in the grand narrative. But God's gaze upon you is not a hurried glance at a runner left behind. It is the tender, focused look of a gardener tending a unique, precious seed planted in its perfect season. His plan for your life is not a generic blueprint handed out to the masses. It is a custom-designed tapestry, woven with threads specific to your strengths, your lessons, your unique purpose, and His perfect timing. Your journey isn't a race against the people beside you on the platform. It is a sacred walk, hand in hand with the Creator of the universe, unfolding step by step in His sequence, not the world's. The stillness you experience may not be stagnation, but sacred preparation, a time when roots grow deep in unseen soil, drawing strength for a harvest others cannot yet comprehend. Sometimes, the greatest movement happens in the quietest waiting. Your worth was sealed not by your perceived progress, but by the blood of Christ on a cross. You are not measured by mile markers others have passed, but by the immeasurable love of the Father who sees you, knows you, and holds your future in His hands. Perhaps the silence isn't an absence of God, but an invitation into a deeper presence, a quiet wilderness where only His voice can be heard. Maybe the delay isn't a detour, but the only path that leads precisely to where you need to be, shaped by the unique pressures and protections only God can provide. He hasn't passed you by. He is walking with you, in step with your heart's true rhythm, preparing you for the path He designed, a path that doesn't need to mimic anyone else's to be profoundly significant and gloriously fulfilled in Him. Trust that where you are is exactly where His love holds you. You find yourself in a place you never expected. It feels like a pit, dark, lonely, abandoned. The dreams you once held, bright as morning stars, now seem like cruel mockeries of your reality. This wasn't the plan. This wasn't the path God promised. You replay the events, the betrayals, the unfairness. How did you get here? How long will you stay? This feeling of being stuck, forgotten, hidden away in a place of humiliation or hardship. It echoes through time, a human lament familiar to souls who dared to trust promises bigger than their present sight. Think of Joseph, a young man with a technicolor dream, vivid and unsettling, predicting a future where even his family would bow before him. A future of leadership, influence, and provision. He carried this promise in his heart, perhaps wearing it like the cloak his father gave him. But the path from dream to reality wasn't a straight line. It was a treacherous, winding descent into the deepest valleys. His own brothers, consumed by envy, conspire against him. They strip him of his coat, stripping him perhaps of his identity, his favor, his innocence. They throw him into a pit, a cistern, empty and dry, a metaphor for a life suddenly devoid of hope, connection, or a clear way out. He begs, he pleads, but his cries go unheard by those who should have protected him. The first taste of betrayal is bitter, leaving a lasting scar on the soul. Sold into slavery, dragged away from everything familiar, Joseph enters a foreign land as property. Yet, even in this dehumanizing circumstance, a quiet truth begins to emerge. God is with him. In Potiphar's house, he thrives. He's diligent, faithful, blessed. He rises to a position of trust, managing the entire household. It seems, perhaps, the pit was just a detour, a brief wilderness before a new season of flourishing. But then, another blow. Falsely accused by Potiphar's wife, his integrity is questioned, his character maligned. Despite his faithfulness, despite his innocence, he is thrown into prison. Now, the prison, worse than the pit in some ways, a longer, more defined period of confinement. Years stretch into a hazy continuum of routine and despair. He's forgotten by those he helps, like the cupbearer whose dream he interprets, who promises to remember him but then neglects him. The dream of the palace feels impossibly distant now. The promise seems broken. His reality is a concrete cell, a symbol of shattered hopes and delayed justice. How does one hold on to faith when suffering compounds suffering, when one setback follows another in relentless succession? How do you trust God when you feel abandoned, not just by people, but seemingly by the divine plan itself? But look closer at the narrative. Even in prison, the phrase repeats, "The Lord was with Joseph." God's presence wasn't contingent on Joseph's location or circumstances. It wasn't tied to the pit or the palace. It was a constant, unwavering reality. And in that unwanted place, in that forgotten corner, God was doing a hidden work in Joseph. He wasn't just surviving, he was being prepared. The crucible of suffering forged resilience. Managing the prison affairs, interpreting dreams for fellow inmates. These weren't meaningless tasks. They were divine masterclasses in leadership, discernment, and faithfulness in small, dark places. He was learning the complexities of human nature, the weight of responsibility, and perhaps most profoundly, the radical act of forgiveness that would one day heal a broken family. The pit wasn't just a place of pain. It was a schoolhouse of character. The prison wasn't just a cell. It was a university of divine wisdom. Perhaps your current reality feels like a pit or a prison. Maybe it's a season of financial hardship, relational isolation, chronic illness, or a career dead end. You look around and see walls, limitations, and a lack of escape routes. You wonder if God has forgotten your dream, your promise, your very existence. The fear whispers that this is it. This is your lot. This waiting is wasted time. But what if this unwanted place is precisely where God is doing his most crucial work in you? What if the pressure is shaping you? The isolation is deepening your dependence on him. The delay is building your capacity for the responsibility he has in store. What if the character being forged in the fire is more valuable than the comfort being withheld? Can you begin to trust that the unseen work happening in your soul in this difficult season is preparation, not punishment? That God is with you in the pit, just as he would be in the palace? That his timing isn't about your comfort, but about his perfect unfolding? It's in the depths of the pit that resilience is born, in the confines of the prison that true freedom in Christ is understood. Your deepest suffering might be the very ground where God plants the seeds for your greatest future. The ache in your chest isn't just longing, it's the friction of your timeline rubbing against God's. You've laid it all out, the prayer, the plan, the fervent hope for a breakthrough by Friday. But the calendar pages keep turning, and the answer hasn't materialized. It feels like God is on a different clock, one you can't see or control. This frantic energy, this need for instant visibility, is the rhythm of the world pulsing through your veins. It whispers, push harder, demand faster. If it's not happening now, it's not happening. And you find yourself trying to force the bud open before spring has truly arrived. Look around you. Truly look. The world itself breathes on a divine rhythm, a tempo set by the Creator's own hand. The sun doesn't rise because you command it. The tide doesn't turn at your bidding. The tiny seed knows the patient dark before it dares to reach for light. These are echoes of a truth far grander than our hurried schedules. God works in seasons. He has a time for everything under heaven. His timing isn't a delay. It is deliberate. It is perfect. Think of the wilderness journey. 40 years, not because God was lost, but because he was shaping a people, preparing them in the waiting. Or the sower who casts seed, knowing the harvest is far off. There is a profound wisdom in this divine pace that transcends human understanding. You cannot rush the dawn, nor can you rush God's perfect unfolding in your life. The deepest act of trust isn't just believing God will do something. It's believing He is doing it now, even when it looks like nothing. It's surrendering the tightly wound spring of your anxiety, the fear that if you don't control the clock, nothing will ever happen, and placing your wrist into His gentle hand. His rhythm isn't always predictable, but it is always purposeful. It's often slower than you'd like, sometimes moving in ways you can't trace, like oil being poured drop by drop into a lamp waiting for the night. This surrender is not passive resignation. It is active peace. It is choosing to rest your heart in His sovereign timing, releasing the frantic grip of control, and finding true peace in the knowledge that His calendar for your life is held in love and perfect wisdom. Can you quiet the world's frantic drumbeat for just a moment and listen for the gentle pulse of His? Trust that His timing is not merely good, but the good. You sit there, the air thick with unanswered questions. The waiting presses in like a physical weight. The silence isn't peaceful. It's deafening, echoing with the urgent whisper. Do something. Make it happen. Push. Every fiber of your being screams against the inertia. You feel the powerful temptation to rise, to churn with anxiety, to manipulate circumstances, to send that frantic email, chase that half-hearted lead, make that desperate call. The fear is a cold hand on your heart. If you stop moving, nothing will ever change. If you aren't relentlessly striving, the door will stay closed, the breakthrough will never come, the healing will never manifest. The world applauds the hustle, the relentless pursuit, and in this agonizing pause, the absence of visible movement feels like failure, feels like giving up. But sometimes, maybe most profoundly, the greatest strength is found in stillness. It's a truth that feels like a contradiction in a culture built on constant motion. The ancient words drift in, a gentle counter-melody to the frantic beat of your heart. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. This isn't an invitation to passive resignation, to simply throwing up our hands and saying, whatever happens, happens. No, this stillness is profoundly active. It is a fierce, intentional act of trust in a God who is sovereign and good. It's choosing to quiet the racing thoughts, the what-ifs, the endless permutations of possible outcomes that torment your mind. It's intentionally silencing the clamor of the anxious heart that insists you must be the architect of your own salvation, the orchestrator of your destiny. It is choosing, in the eye of the storm raging within, to listen for His voice, often a whisper carried on the wind of your quieted spirit. To listen not for instructions on what to do next, but to remember who He is. To call to mind His character, His faithfulness etched across history, His promises that stand firm when your world feels like shifting sand. This stillness is resting. It's choosing presence over frantic striving. It's an active surrender, laying down the heavy burden of trying to control the uncontrollable. Imagine a sailor in the fiercest storm, not trying to outmuscle the waves, but dropping anchor, trusting the hidden strength of the chain and the unseen rock below. That is the stillness God calls you to. It's saying, my effort might fail, my plans might crumble, but He is God, and He is working. Perhaps you've been living in the wilderness of waiting, trying to dig wells of your own strength, only to find the ground hard and barren. Maybe you've been like the 5 foolish virgins in the parable, scrambling for oil when the bridegroom is near, forgetting the quiet discipline of keeping your lamp filled beforehand. The strength isn't in the frantic last-minute scramble. It's in the steady, unseen filling of the Spirit in times of quiet devotion. In the stillness, you cultivate a deep knowing, a knowing that transcends mere intellectual assent. It's a gut-level, soul-deep conviction that He is God, and you are not. And in that profound realization lies immense peace and power. You don't have to hold the world together. You don't have to solve every problem instantly. You don't have to force the bloom on a flower. He is nurturing in His own perfect timing. Choosing stillness is an act of faith, pure and simple. It is saying, my anxiety is real. My fear is palpable. The desire to fix this is overwhelming. But I will choose to anchor my soul in the truth of who You are. It is in this quiet surrender that God's power is often most profoundly revealed. He doesn't always need your busyness. He requires your availability, your listening ear, your trusting heart. The strength He offers isn't the adrenaline of frantic action. It's the quiet fortitude found in knowing you are held, you are seen, and He is working behind the scenes, even when the stage appears empty. Let the stillness be your strength today. Let it be the place where faith overshadows franticness, and where the deep knowing of God's character transforms your anxious heart into a posture of expectant rest. It's not inaction, it's rooted action, rooted not in your power, but in His. You feel the ache of the weight deep in your bones. It settles in your chest, a heavy guest you didn't invite. Maybe you're waiting for the text, the call, the answer that changes everything. Maybe it's the job offer that validates your worth, the healing that restores your body, the relationship that feels like the missing piece. And with each passing day, you notice it. How much of your sense of self, your very identity, has become intertwined with this thing you're longing for. Without the relationship, you might feel incomplete, like a story paused mid-sentence. Without the job, unproductive, maybe even worthless in a world that measures value by output. Without the healing, you feel defined by the diagnosis, the illness becoming the headline of your life story. The waiting period, in its harsh, quiet way, can feel like a wilderness, stripping away the external markers you once leaned on. It challenges the very foundation of who you think you are. It asks, perhaps brutally, if you aren't this outcome, then who are you? But this wilderness, this season of lack, is not just a place of hardship. It is, in God's upside-down economy, an invitation to a deeper, more resilient discovery. It's a quiet call to unearth who you are in Christ, independent of your circumstances, independent of what you have or don't have, independent of whether the door swings open today or remains stubbornly shut. Like gold refined by fire, the external layers are burned away, revealing a truer, more enduring substance within. You are not defined by the delay. You are not defined by the lack. Your value, your inherent worth, doesn't hang precariously on the outcome. It doesn't depend on whether that job materializes now, next year, or ever. It doesn't rely on the swiftness of healing or the arrival of a partner. Your identity is a gift, secure and unchanging, anchored not in shifting sands of circumstance, but in the bedrock of God's love. You are chosen. You are cherished. You are fully known and wholly accepted, not because of what you achieve or possess, but because you are His beloved. This waiting is a sacred space, a quiet workshop where God is re-anchoring your identity, not in the outcome you crave, but in the unchanging truth of His acceptance. He is teaching you that in the stillness of the wait, you can find the loudest confirmation of who you truly are, His. Trust Him to define you, not the waiting. You sit in the quiet, the silence amplifying the doubt. You prayed. You spoke His promises back to Him. You pleaded for a sign, for movement, for anything visible. But the landscape remains barren. The desert stretches out before you, vast and unyielding. You feel the sand beneath your feet, hot and familiar now, a constant reminder that the oasis you were promised feels less like a divine reality and more like a cruel, shimmering mirage on the horizon. It's hard to believe God is working when you see no results, when every step feels like sinking deeper into the dry, cracked earth of disappointment. Anxiety whispers that you were forgotten, that perhaps His promises were never meant for you, a cruel illusion in your personal wilderness. Yet, the most significant work God does is often unseen, hidden beneath the surface of your perceived reality. It is internal, profound, and strategic. While you are looking for external shifts, the job offer, the healing, the answered prayer, appearing like a completed structure, He is busy laying the invisible foundation, building the essential framework. He's chipping away at the brittle stone of your deepest fears, carving out space for courage. He's building resilience you didn't know you possessed, strand by strand, moment by difficult moment. He is refining your faith like gold in a furnace, not to burn you, but to purify you, to burn away the dross of doubt and leave behind something precious and unbreakable. Think of the invisible scaffolding holding up a magnificent building during its construction. You don't see it in the glorious final structure, the polished glass, the strong walls, the towering spires. But it was absolutely essential. It bore the weight, supported the workers, allowed the unseen inner structure to be safely built. God's unseen work in your waiting season is like that scaffolding, crucial, strategic, and absolutely necessary. He is arranging circumstances you can't possibly perceive, softening hearts you can't reach, preparing paths you couldn't possibly forge on your own. You may feel empty, yet He is filling you with unseen strength. You see nothing moving, yet everything is shifting beneath the surface of your understanding. His hands are moving, even behind the curtain of your current reality. The silence isn't absence. It's often the sound of internal construction. The lack of visible change isn't idleness. It's the quiet diligence of a master builder working on the deeper structure of your soul and your circumstances. Trust that His promises are not a mirage, but a destination being built, brick by invisible brick. Your task is not to see the finished product, but to trust the process happening in the unseen. Lean into the quiet conviction that He who began a good work in you is faithful to complete it, often in ways you will only understand when the scaffolding is finally removed and the completed glory is revealed. Trust that His hands are moving, crafting your story in the dark. The email pings again. Another no, or maybe just another automated silence where you hoped for a human response. The calendar page flips. A new month dawns. And still, the prayer hangs unanswered in the air. A silent, heavy question mark. This is the landscape of not yet. It's a terrain many souls traverse. A place where hope feels less like a vibrant bloom and more like a wilting flower, its petals weighted with the moisture of deferred expectation. The not yet isn't just a simple passage of time. It's an experience. It's the ache in your chest when you see others receiving what you've desperately longed for. It's the gnawing doubt that whispers insidious questions in the quiet hours of the night. Did God forget? Is my faith too weak? Am I not worthy? The weight of not yet can press down on your spirit like a stone. You feel the burden in the slump of your shoulders, in the weary sigh that escapes before you even realize it. It carries disappointment, sharp and real, a sting that lingers. It carries a weariness that sleep doesn't fully dispel, a bone-deep tiredness that comes from carrying a heavy load of anticipation day after long day. It's the fatigue of the soul, waiting at a door that remains stubbornly shut, listening for a sound that never comes. It's important, deeply important, to acknowledge this weight. God doesn't ask you to paste a smile on your face and pretend the waiting isn't hard. He doesn't demand a performance of unwavering stoicism while your heart is breaking in the quiet. Your faith is not measured by how well you hide your struggle, but by how honestly you bring it to Him. He invites you, gently but firmly, to bring your weariness, your frustration, your impatience, your sorrow, your unanswered questions, your tears to Him. He is not afraid of your messy, human experience. He is not intimidated by the depth of your longing or the height of your disappointment. Consider the Israelites. For generations, they carried the promise of a land flowing with milk and honey. They endured brutal slavery in Egypt, a not yet of monumental proportion. Then, freed by a mighty hand, they stepped into the wilderness, another not yet season, perhaps even more trying than the first in some ways. A vast, desolate, uncertain place between their escape and their inheritance. They faced hunger, thirst, fear, doubt, and grumbling. God didn't scold them for their human struggles. He met them in the wilderness. He provided bread from heaven, water from a rock, protection from the elements, direction by cloud and fire. He was present in their not yet, intimately involved in their struggle. He understands the ache of prolonged longing. He knows what it feels like to see the promised land from afar but not yet possess it. He walked a path of profound not yet himself, waiting for the fullness of time, waiting in the garden, waiting on the cross. He is not distant from your waiting. He is deeply acquainted with it. He is not impatient with your human struggle. He doesn't look down with disapproval when you feel the weight pressing in. He looks with compassion. So bring the burden of not yet to the one who carries all burdens. You are not meant to shoulder this alone. You are invited to lay it at His feet. Picture it, the heavy sack of what if, and when will, and why not. Just let it fall before Him. In the surrender of your heavy load, you discover a paradoxical lightness. You stop striving to carry what you were never designed to hold, and you create space for His strength to enter. His strength isn't just for the now. It is designed to uphold you precisely when yours is failing in the season of not yet. His grace is not a reward for arriving at your destination. It is the very fuel for the journey through the not yet days. It is the quiet energy that allows you to take the next step even when you can't see the path ahead. It is the gentle assurance that even in the wilderness, you are not abandoned. The oil in the lamp may seem low, the light flickering, but His grace is sufficient to keep it burning until dawn breaks. Trusting God always means trusting Him even, perhaps especially, when the only answer you seem to hear is not yet. It means trusting that even in the silence, He is working. Even in the waiting, He is weaving His purpose. Even when you feel forgotten, you are held. You sit in the quiet. The calendar page is turning without the expected shift. The future you pictured feels suspended, held in an unexpected pause. Anxiety taps at the window of your soul, whispering doubts. Is God listening? Am I forgotten here in this space between? The waiting can feel like wandering in a wilderness, barren and endless, far from the promised land you yearn for. You may feel frustration simmering, a sense of time being wasted, opportunities missed because the door won't open, the path won't clear. This stillness wasn't in your plan. It feels less like peace and more like purgatory, a test you weren't prepared to take, a chapter where the plot seems stuck. But what if this pause isn't punishment, or even just patience, but purpose? What if God isn't delaying for a reason, but doing something transformative in this season? The scriptures are filled with stories of God working most powerfully when human plans stalled. Paul, confined within prison walls, wasn't silenced. He found a different kind of freedom, pouring out letters that still shape our understanding of faith today. John, exiled to the lonely Isle of Patmos, wasn't abandoned. He was given a divine vision that unveiled the cosmic future. Their waiting places became fertile ground for enduring truth. Your quiet corner, your unexpected delay, your season of stillness, it might just be the divinely appointed space for healing past wounds the rushing forward would have ignored. It could be the time to quietly cultivate skills God intends for your next steps. Skills that thrive in the hidden, like a seed growing strong roots unseen before bursting forth. Perhaps this pause is the invitation to learn a deeper contentment, not based on circumstances, but on Christ alone, finding abundance in what is, not just in what will be. Maybe it's the chance to serve in ways you wouldn't have considered when your focus was on forward momentum. God often uses the stripped-down seasons to redefine our focus, to reveal ministries we didn't see from the highway of busy ambition. He isn't just waiting with you. He is working in you and through this very waiting. He turns seasons of seeming stagnation into sacred soil. So, instead of just enduring the pause, lean into it with curiosity. Ask Him the brave question, Father, what are you teaching me here? What is the purpose woven into this pause? Trust that His stillness has a plan, just as His movement does. He sees the hidden purpose, the transformation blooming in the quiet, the strength being forged in the unexpected waiting room of life. The delay isn't denial, it's often divine design. And finding that purpose in the pause can transform waiting from weary burden into holy ground. You sit in the silence, wondering if your prayer was even heard. The wind taps the window, like God's whisper waiting for your stillness. The path ahead isn't just unclear, it feels utterly invisible, swallowed by a fog you can't penetrate. And the waiting, Oh, the waiting is a long, desolate road that seems to stretch into an endless horizon of unanswered questions. Doubt, like a cold wave, washes over you. Does God see? Does He care? Can He even fix this impossible situation? This is the crucible where faith is tested, refined, and revealed for what it truly is. It's easy to believe that God can act when the miracle is visible, when the mountain moves on command. But what happens when the mountain stands firm, when the Red Sea refuses to part, when the wilderness stretches out mile after mile, and the promised land is just a rumor on the wind? Faith, in these barren seasons, isn't merely about believing that God can do something for you. It is about believing who God is, regardless of whether or not He does anything on your desired timeline. It's about clinging to His character when everything around you feels shaky and uncertain. This is the firm ground beneath your feet in the waiting storm, trusting His character, believing deep in your soul that He is good. Not just good when things are easy, but fundamentally, irrevocably, eternally good, even when the circumstances scream the opposite, when loss has stolen your breath or anxiety chokes the hope from your lungs. His goodness is the bedrock. The pain you feel is real, devastatingly real, but it does not negate His nature. He holds the tears you cannot shed, knows the ache you cannot name, and His goodness remains, like the sun hidden behind storm clouds, still shining, still there. He is faithful. You might feel abandoned, forgotten in the long night of your struggle. The silence from heaven might be deafening, but His faithfulness is not dependent on your feeling of His presence, nor on the visible evidence of His work. He promised never to leave you or forsake you. Hebrews 13:5. That promise is anchored not in your unwavering trust, which wavers, doesn't it, but in His unchanging nature. He remains faithful even when you feel faithless. He is working even when the loom of His plan is hidden from your sight, weaving threads you cannot see into a tapestry only He comprehends. And He is love. Not a fickle, conditional love that depends on your performance or your positive attitude, but an unconditional, relentless, pursuing love that met you at your lowest point and continues to hold you at your most broken. Sometimes His love looks like comfort and rescue, and sometimes, in a way we can barely grasp, His love looks like allowing us to walk through fire, trusting that the refining process, though painful, is for our ultimate good and His glory. His discipline is love. His silence can be love. His mysterious timing is love. It's a gentle paradox. You find the deepest expression of His love not always in the absence of pain, but in His presence within the pain. He is sovereign. This is perhaps the hardest truth to lean into when life feels out of control, chaotic, or unjust. He holds the universe in His hands. Every atom, every galaxy, every tear you cry, every fear that grips you, it is all within His sovereign domain. This doesn't mean He causes evil, but that He is above it, around it, and ultimately, through it. This truth culminates in that staggering promise in Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. All things. Not some things, not the easy things, but all things. The loss, the rejection, the waiting, the doubt, the anxiety, the fear, the deepest fears about the future, about provision, about your own worth. He is capable of weaving even these dark threads into a pattern of good for those who love him. This good might not be the outcome you wanted or expected, but it will be good according to his eternal, loving purpose. When the certainty of your circumstances is gone, when the job is lost, the relationship broken, the diagnosis terrifying, the prayer unanswered year after year, lean into the absolute certainty of his nature. His promises are not anchored in what you see happening around you, but in who he is. He is not a man that he should lie. Numbers 23:19. His character is the unwavering anchor in the tempest. So when doubt whispers its insidious lies, when your heart aches with uncertainty and the path ahead dissolves into mist, stop trying to conjure certainty from your circumstances. Pivot your gaze. Declare his character. Speak his truth over the fear. God, you are good. You are faithful. You are love. You are sovereign. You are working this, somehow, for my good, because I love you. This declaration is not wishful thinking. It is standing on the only ground that cannot shift. The bedrock of his unchanging nature. It is remembering that he is the author of your story, and his character dictates the certainty of its ultimate good conclusion, even when the middle chapters make no sense at all. Trust him, not for what you see, but for who he is. You find yourself in the quiet hum of daily life. It's not the mountaintop moment you envisioned. It's not the dramatic breakthrough you've been praying for. It's just here. The same routine, the same challenges, the same feeling of being tucked away, unseen, in a season of waiting. Maybe you look around at others whose stories seem louder, brighter, more evidently blessed, and a whisper of doubt asks, does any of this even matter? Does God see me here, doing these small things? You pray the same prayers, tend to the same responsibilities, perhaps extend kindness when you're weary, choose integrity when it's harder, and it feels insignificant. Like planting seeds in a hidden garden, wondering if they'll ever break the surface. But God's perspective is different. He doesn't measure faithfulness by the size of the stage, but by the posture of the heart. He sees your consistency in prayer, even when the heavens feel silent. He notices your quiet acts of service, done without applause. He honors your decision to do the next right thing, even when the reward seems distant or non-existent. Think of Joseph, sold into slavery, then thrown into prison. Not exactly the palace steps he might have dreamt of. Yet in Potiphar's house, in the darkness of the dungeon, he managed with integrity, with diligence, with a quiet faithfulness that God recognized. He was practicing leadership, stewardship, and trust in the hidden place, preparing for the moment he would manage a nation. Consider David, tending sheep in the desolate fields, defending his flock from lions and bears. No cheering crowds, just the quiet bleating of sheep and the vast sky. Yet, in those forgotten pastures, he honed his courage, developed his dependency on God, and proved his faithfulness in protecting the vulnerable. He was being shaped into the shepherd king who would lead Israel. Your current life, in its seemingly smallness, is not a holding pattern. It is holy ground. It is the training field where character is forged and capacity is built. Sometimes the greatest growth happens in the smallest spaces. God is watching. He's not overlooking your faithfulness in the wilderness. He's using it. He's using your commitment to truth in a compromised world. He's using your perseverance through mundane tasks. He's using your kindness to the difficult person. He's using your steadfastness in seeking His face when nothing seems to change. This small faithfulness isn't minor, it's foundational. It demonstrates a trust that runs deeper than circumstances, a belief that God is good and sovereign, even when the path isn't grand or clear. Your hidden faithfulness is your most visible declaration of trust to God. Don't despise these days of small beginnings or faithful hiddenness. They are precious in His sight. They are preparing you. They are proving you. They are part of His plan, unfolding in the quiet, honoring your trust. Keep tending the sheep. Keep managing the house. Keep seeking His face. He sees, He prepares, and He will honor the quiet trust you place in Him. Even now, you sit in the quiet, perhaps in a room where the clock ticks louder than your thoughts, or maybe outside, where the world moves on, indifferent to the ache in your chest. You have been waiting for an answer, a sign, a shift in circumstance, a breakthrough. In this long season of unmet longing, a subtle, insidious doubt creeps in. Where is God? He feels miles away, perhaps up in the heavens, occupied with grander cosmic dramas, while your small, persistent struggle goes unnoticed, unheard. It's easy to imagine Him as a distant landlord, checking in only when rent is due or when disaster strikes, but otherwise leaving you to manage the property of your life alone. But the truth, the profound, earth-shattering truth, is that He is not distant, not even a little bit. He is intimately present in the loneliness of your waiting. He is closer than the air you breathe. The very ground you stand upon feels solid because of His sustaining power. This is the One who intricately knit you together in your mother's womb, who knows the number of hairs on your head, who understands every single thought and feeling you possess even before it forms. He is not observing your struggle from a safe distance. He is in the struggle with you. The wilderness you walk through, He walked it first. The valley of shadows, He knows its terrain intimately. The feeling of being forgotten, He carried that weight too. Think of Jesus. He knew betrayal by a friend, abandonment by His closest companions, and agonizing waiting in the Garden of Gethsemane, praying for a different path that never came. He experienced the crushing delay of hope on the cross, crying out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Yet even in that ultimate moment of perceived distance, He was fulfilling the most intimate plan of redemption. He understands suffering. He understands delay. He understands the heart that feels utterly alone in the waiting. This is why Hebrews 4:15-16 is not just beautiful poetry. It is a lifeline. It reminds us we have a high priest in Jesus, one who has been tempted in every way that we are, yet without sin. Because of His journey, He can deeply empathize with our weaknesses, our impatience, our fear, our doubt, our feeling of being forsaken in the wait. The invitation is clear, compelling, and breathtaking. Draw near to His throne of grace. He is waiting there, not to scold your trembling faith or rebuke your impatience, but to lavish you with mercy and to provide the exact grace you need to help you in this specific, difficult time. You are not alone in this wait. His presence is not earned by your strength, but found in your honest weakness. Drawing near is not about perfecting yourself, but about trusting that He is already near, waiting to meet you in the quiet ache of your heart. You sit there, tracing the lines of your life with a questioning finger. What you see feels chaotic. like a tangle of threads, knotted and messy on the underside of something you can't even fully grasp. You see the breaks, the delays, the unexpected turns that seem to lead nowhere. The vibrant colors you imagined are muted, lost in a confusing jumble. This season of waiting, this period of uncertainty, feels less like a divine plan and more like a divine neglect. You pray, you hope, you try to push the threads into some semblance of order, but they resist, stubbornly holding their frustrating knots. You whisper your doubts into the silence. Does God even see this mess? But imagine, for a moment, stepping out of your own perspective and into His. Imagine seeing your life not from beneath the loom, but from above. God's vantage point, this isn't chaos. It is a masterpiece in the making. Every thread, the bright moments, the dark struggles, the seemingly random loops, the tight knots of hardship, is being woven with purpose and intention. What looks like a mistake on your side is an essential element in the grand design from His. He is the master weaver, and He sees the full pattern as it unfolds, thread by thread, color by color, in perfect order and timing. Your waiting season, the very thing that feels like a snag in the fabric of your dreams, is not a pause or an error, but an intricate part of His deliberate design. It is the necessary tension before the pattern reveals itself. The delay isn't about God withholding something good. It's about Him perfecting something beautiful, both in your life and within you. The waiting isn't just about getting the thing you desire, the promotion, the healing, the relationship, the breakthrough. More profoundly, it's about becoming the person He intends you to be through the process. The stillness of waiting, the pressure of the unknown, the refining heat of disappointment, these are the very forces that deepen your roots, making you stable against the inevitable winds of life. This season refines your faith, burning away the dross of self-reliance and superficial trust, leaving behind a purer, more resilient dependence on the One who holds the shuttle. It's about drawing closer to the weaver himself, learning his rhythm, understanding his touch, recognizing His presence in the very threads He is laying down. Sometimes you find strength not in striving, but in surrendering to the process. You look at the knots and fear the tapestry is ruined, that your story will forever bear the mark of imperfection and delay. But the master artist sees the knot and knows it is precisely what is needed to secure that particular color, to hold that section firm against the pull of time. What feels like being stuck is actually being secured. What feels like an ending is often just the tightening of a knot before a new, vibrant color is introduced. This is the quiet paradox of faith. You often see clearly only when you stop straining your eyes in the fog of uncertainty. Trust that the hands guiding the threads are skilled and loving, that the vision is grander than you can possibly imagine from your limited view. He is creating something of breathtaking beauty, a story that will ultimately reflect His glory, even when all you can see from your vantage point are the confusing, tangled knots. Rest in the knowledge that you are held in the hands of the Master Weaver, and His work is always good. And you sit there still. The world keeps turning, the calendar pages flip, and yet the heavy silence you've lived with remains unbroken. The door you've waited patiently for hasn't swung open. The breakthrough, the answer, the change you have yearned for with a deep ache deep in your bones, it hasn't arrived. You whispered the prayers in the quiet of dawn. You held onto the hope through the long afternoons. You wrestled with the doubt under the blanket of night. And here you are, Perhaps right where you started, outwardly unchanged, inwardly weary from the watch. And this is okay. It is more than okay. It is a sacred space, though it feels like a desolate one. Because the truest goal, the one that transforms the soul more than any answered prayer ever could on its own, isn't always the arrival of the answer on our schedule. It isn't the immediate opening of the door, or the sudden breaking of the silence, or the instant manifestation of the breakthrough. The deeper, more enduring goal of this demanding season is the deepening of our trust in the one who holds the answer, who knows the timing, and, most intimately, who holds us, every fragile piece of our heart and hope, securely in His faithful hand. You have walked this path with raw honesty, naming the ache, acknowledging the fear, admitting the struggle. You faced the insidious whisper of comparison, watching others receive their harvest while your field lies fallow. You've wrestled with the persistent, often painful reality of the not yet, that space between the promise and the fulfillment, the prayer and the answer. But in the midst of that wrestling, you've also seen glimmers, haven't you? Glimmers of God's presence, even in the deepest pit of despair or the loneliest prison of waiting. You've begun to recognize His unchanging character as the only anchor that holds when everything else is shifting sand. You've started to glimpse the subtle, often hidden purpose woven into the pause, the reason why this waiting, this stillness, this unknown might be utterly essential for what comes next, and more importantly, for who you are becoming. This journey through the wait was never about achieving perfect, unwavering faith from sunrise to sunset. It wasn't about never doubting, never crying out, never feeling lost. No. The victory in this season lies not in a constant state of perfect faith, but in the consistent, sometimes weary, act of returning. Returning again and again to the one who is perfectly faithful, even when we are not. He hasn't forgotten you. You are etched into the palm of His hand. His timing is not a reflection of your worth, as if you aren't good enough for Him to act, or a measure of His love, as if He doesn't care enough to intervene. His timing is a reflection, a perfect mirror, of His infinite wisdom and His ultimate unfolding plan, a plan far grander and more loving than your wildest dreams or most anxious fears could comprehend. Your life, with all its unexpected twists, its silent stretches, its moments of profound uncertainty, is not a series of isolated incidents happening to you while God watches from a distance. It is a continuous, dynamic unfolding within the vast ocean of His sovereign love. The waiting is not a meaningless void, not a cosmic punishment, not the end of your story. It is a vital, refining chapter. It is the chapter where your faith is being purified, tested, strengthened, like gold in the fire. It is where you are learning, perhaps for the first time in a way that matters, to lean harder, not on your own understanding or strength, but on the only one who is utterly, perfectly, reliably trustworthy. It is where you discover that sometimes finding your footing means learning to stand still. So breathe deeply now. Feel the air fill your lungs, a gift in this very moment, this sacred now. Release the frantic need to understand every single step, every delay, every unanswered question. Let go of the gnawing fear that you are somehow missing out, that life is passing you by, and you are being left behind while others are moving forward. You are not forgotten. You are not abandoned. You are right where God intends you to be, held with an unbreakable grip in the palm of His hand. Even in the deepest quiet, even in the most profound unknown, His presence is not absent. It is a gentle, unwavering song playing low in the background of your soul. A melody of peace and promise over you. Rest there, in that certainty. He is faithful. Always. You may not see the end of this waiting, but you are held securely by the Author, and that is enough.